Welcome to the We Rise podcast, where we are building collective resilience. I'm your host, Christine Gyovai, business owner, wife, mother of two, paddleboarder, and I love working with communities across the nation. Join me as I share stories and strategies to inspire action to build resilience and community transformation. From the Navajo Nation to the mountains of Appalachia, incredible work is being done by community members and leaders. I'm excited to share more on the podcast today. Welcome. Greetings. Welcome to the We Rise podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm excited to focus in today's episode around women leading and centering women's voices, which is so key in building community and creating transformation. We'll look at how women, including people that identify as trans and non-binary, occupy more places of power than ever before. The reasons that when women lead, it creates transformation at multiple scales, including economic, environmental, and social. We'll look at some amazing numbers and hear stories of Wahleah and Nicole, Horseherder, both leaders in the transition around coal and renewables in the Navajo Nation. We'll wrap the episode up with the power of story and connecting women to one another's stories. Enjoy. We are in the midst of a change on a global scale regarding the roles for women and the value of their contributions in virtually every sphere. Politics, religion, athletics, academics, the list is endless. The number of women in executive level leadership positions has increased substantially, and that trend is on the rise. Kamala Harris was recently elected as the first woman vice president, and half of the cabinet of the Biden-Harris administration is female. 1/4 of the U.S. Congress is comprised of women, and all S&P 500 firms have at least one female board member for the first time in history. Women's voices are being heard now more than ever before and are needed now more than ever before. When looking at how to grow resilience and environmental sustainability, women are leading in ways that are new and innovative, creating lasting change at many levels. Women are showing up with their remarkable spirit, energy, and ideas to ignite inspiration and initiate action. The world is changing as women rise and lead together. Many organizations are recognizing the detrimental effects of not having had enough women in leadership roles and are actively working to address this. Melinda Gates of the Gates Foundation and author of The Moment of Lift, How Empowering Women Changes the World, is committing $1 billion over the next 10 years to advance gender equality. Gates says that evidence shows it is the best way to drive performance in companies and economic development in nations. She says that investing in women is not just good for corporate business, it's good for growing economies around the world. As an example, research has shown that when 10% of more girls are educated, a country's gross domestic product increases by 3% on average. 3%, that's enormous. Investing in women and women's leadership creates concentric rings of wealth from individual through community levels. Rachel Rogers of Hello 7, an attorney, mother, and author of We Should All Be Millionaires, says, when women earn more money, the world becomes a better place. Literally. Women's economic participation and their ownership of financial assets speeds up development, helps overcome poverty, reduces inequality, and improves children's nutrition, health, and school attendance. Working women invest 90% of their income back into their families and communities, compared with only 35% for men. Hello 7 helps train women and those from systemically marginalized communities to create 7-figure businesses, supports them in being actively anti-racist, and is working to build a world where men and women have equal financial power. In Appalachian towns, fracking oil fields, the Navajo Nation, and communities across the globe, cultural and economic structures are undergoing significant transformation, increasingly led by and through women. When I look out over the last 2 decades, I have worked with communities to create resilience. The biggest changes I have seen in communities are where women are leading. I have been continually amazed by the gumption and grit women have shown to make change. They don't wait for someone else to give them the go-ahead. They know that they are the ones that they have been waiting for and that they need to create the change they want to see, because if they don't, it won't happen. A 2012 piece in the Huffington Post about microfinance notes that the top reason to invest in women is that helping women means helping families. A direct quote from the article says that investments in women extend to the world around them. Women don't just pay back microloans, they pay them forward. They know how to utilize money, resources, and ideas with wisdom and creativity to make better choices. Women are proven more likely than men to share the rewards of microfinance and put their income back into their families and communities, driving illiteracy and mortality rates down and GDP up. In addition to improved economic prospects, evidence shows investing in girls and women is a promising climate solution, according to Global Citizen. Women can use strong ties in their communities to advocate and gain trust for renewable energy technologies, for example. Women are often excluded from major government and decision-making, but when they are empowered to participate, they bring more empathy and inclusiveness to the table. Equal leadership representation benefits both men and women. Research shows that companies with more women executives on their boards are more likely to reduce carbon emissions, improve energy efficiency, and invest in renewable energy. According to one study by researchers at the University of Oregon and the University of California, Davis, countries with higher female parliamentary representation are more likely to ratify international environmental treaties. And when women have secure rights and access to land, they use their resources sustainably. Research by USAID found that countries are more inclusive, egalitarian, and democratic where women's share of seats in political bodies is greater than 30%. So that's amazing, more inclusive, egalitarian, and democratic. So there are amazing stories of women leading across the globe, but especially I love the stories of these women from the Navajo Nation. Wahleah Johns is the co-founder of Native Renewables, which provides power to homes on the Navajo and Hopi reservations through off-grid solar photovoltaic systems. Johns is a member of the Navajo or Diné tribe and comes from the community of Forest Lake, Black Mesa, Arizona. John's work with the Black Mesa Water Coalition, the Navajo Green Energy Coalition, led to groundbreaking legislative victories for groundwater protection, green jobs, and environmental justice. In 2019, she was awarded the Nathan Cummings Foundation Fellowship. Currently, she is the director for the Office of Indian Energy at the U.S. Department of Energy. Johns is creating change that extends across Native nations, especially for elders. More than 14% of the population in Navajo and Hopi communities are elders. Johns reflects by saying, "We honor our elders and believe all life is sacred. My grandmother is 95 years old and is a national treasure. Her wisdom and knowledge of our ceremonies and language have kept us rooted to Mother Earth." Native Renewables is bringing solar power and security to elders in the Navajo and Hopi communities and has a goal of reaching at least 15,000 homes in Navajo and Hopi nations. More information is available at the website nativerenewables.org. Diné activist Nicole Horseherder is working in a similar geography for equity and justice for the Navajo tribe. She has been organizing for many years around the Navajo Generating Station, the largest coal-fired power plant in the western United States, which has supplied electricity to millions of customers in Arizona, Nevada, and California. Horseherder lives in Black Mesa, where coal was mined to power the Navajo Generating Station. The station was demolished in December of 2020 after a 3-year decommissioning process due to the changing economics in the energy industry. The Navajo Generating Station has been of significant economic importance to the tribes, but a high price has been paid in impacts to the surrounding land and water for mining. In a recent High Country News piece, Jessica Coots wrote, "Over the years, Horseherder has attended public hearings and testified in front of lawmakers from the reservation to Washington, D.C., advocating for an end to extractive energy economies. She's often been the lone voice in the room, confronting not only the coal companies and private interests, but also her own neighbors and tribal government. Now that the Navajo Generating Station has closed and other power plants in the region are soon to follow, her vision of a more sustainable energy economy, one powered by wind and solar, is coming clearly into view. No matter how frustrated I get," Nicole says, "sometimes with the way tribal government works or with how hard it is sometimes to educate people in the community, still it's the right thing to do and it's a worthwhile thing to do." With the closure of the generating station, Horseherder has been working to ensure a just transition for workers in the surrounding communities through garnering direct support from the industry and the utilities. The model of companies being held financially accountable to communities has not been used extensively in the United States, but it is being increasingly invoked in communities where plants or mines are closing. For example, Germany has committed to pay labor wages for communities coming out of the mining industry as communities transition. On Black Mesa, aquifer levels dropped significantly as water was used for processing coal in an area that receives scant annual rainfall. Tens of billions of gallons of potable water were used to extract, clean, and transport coal mined in the region, and the aquifer was drying up. And indeed, our family drove through Black Mesa just last month on a road trip, and it is amazing to see not only the way that communities are organized, but the clear effects of mining across the landscape. Building collective resilience looks different in different places. What stories and strategies inspire you? Share your ideas with us on social media and check out our website at yeswerise.org to find the show notes, interview videos, and the links mentioned on the podcast today. Nicole's organization, Tonojona Anme, which means Sacred Water Speaks, is a nonprofit organization Horseherder and her husband, Marshall Johnson, founded to stop the use of the aquifer in the coal mine on Black Mesa. Over the years, Horseherder coordinated many community meetings to organize people to protect the water in the Navajo aquifer being used to clean and transport coal as it was drying up for community members. Horseherder traveled to local communities to raise awareness about the mine and encourage opposition to the aquifer pumping by Peabody Coal Company to send a message to the Navajo Tribal Council to create policy to address it. Eventually, a resolution was passed against the water extraction from the aquifer, and in 2005, the Mojave Generating Station in Nevada closed, which had been using water from Black Mesa Aquifer 270 miles away. Jessica Coots wrote, "For Horseherder, it was a major win. It motivated us to keep working for the things that we knew to be true, that this is our homeland and there's no one else that's going to protect it except us." Now that the Navajo Generating Station has closed, Horseherder is working on energy policy, renewable energy, and creating a just transition for displaced workers and the community. As a result of her efforts, in 2019, the Navajo Generating Station paid approximately $40 million to the Navajo Nation as well as millions to the Hopi, accounting for approximately 80% of the tribe's budget in 2016. As Horseherder draws up plans for a future where the relationship between energy economies and local communities is more equitable from the start, Coots writes, she's also pushing to make companies like SRP and Peabody pay. So far, she's helped to secure millions of dollars for her community. The utility company, Arizona Public Service, has pledged $144 million for transition assistance, economic development, and electrification for the Navajo Nation, Hopi tribe, and communities near the Cholla power plant in Joseph City. If approved by the Arizona Corporation Commission, the State Public Utilities Commission, it will be the largest amount pledged for an equitable transition by a utility company in the United States. A new energy economy must be structured differently than relationships of the past. That's the whole point. We want to make sure that there's clear guidelines on how to operate projects in the reservation, especially for outside entities, but also for Navajo developers, Horseherder said in the High Country News piece. Over time, many communities have been structured hierarchically with top-down authoritarian and sometimes domineering leadership. At times, women's voices have been marginalized or excluded. Now, in the pressure cooker of the COVID-19 pandemic and the loss of economic opportunity in fossil fuel-based communities, a different approach is needed. The way that communities have been led in the past has not resulted in an equitable or resilient future for all. Now, women's voices need to be centered in community structure and leadership positions. In an April 2020 article about the challenges facing communities due to COVID-19 pandemic, Jude Ellis and Sadie Doyle wrote, "Certain qualities we consider more feminine, risk avoidance, a bias towards cooperation over competition, the willingness to prioritize the well-being or safety of others above your own, turn out to be the exact ones needed to survive a global pandemic. Social psychologists have long argued that women and men have different characteristic stress responses. In this crisis, tend and befriend, the mostly feminine instinct to ensure group safety is much more useful than the masculine fight or flight. Viruses cannot be fought, only mitigated through a communal pact to reduce risk-taking. When no one tries to be an action hero, everybody is more likely to survive." A report from the National Bureau of Economic Research titled "The End of Men and Rise of Women in the High-Skilled Labor Market" states that women have a comparative advantage in tasks requiring social and interpersonal skills. A separate Korn Ferry study discovered that women outperform men in 11 out of 12 of the key emotional intelligence competencies, stating that women are better at using soft skills crucial for effective leadership. It will require a different skill set from what we have seen in the past for communities to learn to work together. Women naturally lead with greater levels of emotional intelligence, empathy, and team building skills than do their male counterparts. However, both of these strong suits that both men and women bring are needed to build a resilient future. Time and time again, though, it has been demonstrated that when women lead, communities are stronger. Centering women's voices and creating positions of leadership on boards, in companies, and in elected positions result in a more equitable and prosperous future for all. In my 2 decades of working with communities to create resilience, the greatest change I have seen is where women are leading, working collaboratively, building relationships, growing trust, and rolling up their sleeves to stay engaged for the long haul. I used to have a picture on my desk of a woman holding a sign up saying, "Collaborate or die." Sadly, it's true. Communities that don't collaborate, that don't work together to envision and work towards a new future, often are dying. And it's a painful thing to see, both for the community members themselves and for those on the outside looking in. However, in many communities, women are leading transformation in ways that are new and innovative. Women can listen to dissent and recognize that people's differences are what makes a community strong and resilient. We all long for stories to connect and transform our lives. Jungian analyst and storyteller Clarissa Pinkola Estes writes, in Women Who Run with the Wolves, stories set the inner life into motion. And this is particularly important when the inner life is frightened, wedged, or corners. Story greases the hoists and pulleys. It causes adrenaline to surge and shows us the way out, down, up, and for our trouble, cuts us fine, wide doors in previously blank walls, openings that lead to the dreamland, that lead to love and learning, that lead us back to our own real lives. So beautifully written. In my own work in Central Appalachia, I've watched women with no training or experience stand up and become leaders in their communities because the leader they had refused to budge or because things were just getting too bad. I've seen women step out of their ordinary lives and inspire other women with how they've created change and growth in their communities. I've watched women learn how to write grants, create PowerPoint presentations, and engage in their communities where they had never done that previously. It isn't easy. It isn't straightforward, but it does create transformation. 2 of those amazing women are Mayor Deborah Horn of Dungannon, Virginia, as well as Luann Wallace of St. Paul, Virginia, who are as much points of inspiration as anyone I've ever met, 2 powerhouse leaders who have both been guests on the podcast. As women rise and lead together, they help all of us have a better, stronger, and more resilient future. So if you want to hear some points about what this looks like in community, there are some takeaways or community resilience points on the website, yeswerise.org. We invite you to check them out, as well as share your own ideas on Facebook and Instagram at Collective Resilience We Rise. Thanks for listening. Thank you for joining the We Rise podcast. To learn more about the stories and speakers featured in this episode, check out our website at yeswerise.org. You'll find the show notes, interview videos, the links mentioned today, and you can join our email list. Subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review or a rating. You can also find us on Facebook or Instagram at Collective Resilience We Rise to share your ideas. The Collective Resilience We Rise podcast is produced by Dialogue and Design Associates, podcasting for creatives with music by Drishti Beats. Thanks so much for listening.